What is up, everybody? This is Alex from IGTV. Yeah, I'm Spider-Man, dog. And today I'm talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day, the 148th Tom Holland Spider-Man appearance. And you know what? It's pretty good. It's fun. It's a good time. While a lot of the superhero movie conversation is around this idea of fatigue, there are a couple of superheroes that are immune to it, that being Spider-Man and Batman. Characters who are basically Mickey Mouse here of recognizable. Everyone in the world knows them. Everyone just enjoys seeing stories involving them. And I'm in that category. I'll always be there for Spider-Man, not just because of my connection to the Raimi nostalgia, but just on paper, he's a really great character. Relatable, a lot of his problems you can project onto him. And I've mentioned it before, but I just love a protagonist that is just put through the ringer again and again and constantly has to get back up and go on like a trooper. While I really like Tom Holland as Spider-Man in all these Marvel movies, there's never really been one of them that I love or adore. They all have good moments, but kind of falter on a rewatch and don't hold up in a lot of ways. But one of the things I really wanted to see from this character is something more visually interesting, because the John Watts stuff had a lot more personality with just the chemistry of the actors and the lower scale John Hughes kind of inspired stuff, but could never quite get the swinging and the action side of it right. And I was kind of excited about this movie because it's finally a new director, a new voice in here, that being Destin Daniel Cretton, who recently was the showrunner on Wonder Man, which is supposed to be one of the better Marvel shows. Not that I've seen it, I just don't really care about the Marvel shows anymore. But he also directed Shang-Chi in this same universe. And while that film really loses its footing after a while, the fisticuffs action in the first half of that film is awesome and really applies well to the character of Spider-Man. So I'll talk some non-spoilers first and clearly announce when I'm going into a spoiler section, because there is some stuff to spoil here. We're picking up about 4 years after, was it Far From Home? I can never remember the name of these, where everyone's been memory wiped, and we finally have this character in a position where he's not Iron Man Jr. One of my least favorite aspects of the Tom Holland Spider-Man is kind of how tech-heavy it is. I'm not really into that version of Spider-Man. I like him as kind of stripped back as possible, in a literal sense, but also where he is as a character. The starting point is more interesting than where it ends. I was hoping they'd flesh out his arc a little bit more. I feel like his arc in Homecoming is a lot stronger, because this film is a lot more dense with like characters and cameos and quite plot heavy and long. I didn't really mind how long it was, especially because there was a point where it felt like it was wrapping up, and I was like, oh, I hope it doesn't end here, because this would feel really unsatisfying, and I'm glad it kind of kept going. I was intrigued with some of the directions that the villain went in. It's pulpy and soap opera-y in the way I think superhero movies should be. I was kind of concerned when this first trailer came out with, this is probably my least favorite looking scene in the entire movie, this one, where it's so obviously on a soundstage, and it just doesn't feel like he's in the environment, which is like, this might be the worst shot in the entirety of the MCU. It's so atrocious. I feel like I'm always calling back to it because it's the visual symbol of the worst that the production line Marvel filmmaking can produce. But I'm pleased to say that the balance was way more in favor of it actually kind of looking like a movie and having a lot more varied and interesting composition, shot variety, camera work. There are a bunch of shots that just felt like they were ripped straight out of a comic book in a complimentary way. Some which have stuck in my head and really rung as like a double page splash from a comic, with just a lot more depth and a lot more kind of interesting variety to what is being shown. All of the action scenes have really cool shit in it. It's definitely the best Tom Holland Spider-Man film in consistency of action, maybe not overall arcs, or even maybe my favorite of them. I kind of like the quaintness of Homecoming and the way the villain is incorporated into that movie a bit more. I know I've got the 1 out of 10 there. Again, this is like an old IMDb account. I used to mark things as 1 out of 10 just so I remember that I'd seen it before it had a watched option. A lot of tasteful odes to the Raimi trilogy, and normally this character is able to play me like a fiddle on an emotional level with some of these tragic story points that often revolve around him, and just the earnestness and heart that the character has at its core. Outside of the very ending, it wasn't really speaking to me on an emotional level. I was more just kind of enjoying the poppiness of it, the action in particular, whereas I feel like some of the previous movies have had more impactful emotional highlights. I enjoyed how they committed to the memory loss angle. It kind of feels like they're building on the character. Even though he's not changed that much through this movie, it still feels like he's been through a lot, that he is being put through the ringer. And it just has a consistently playful sense of humor that nails the vibe of the character. It didn't have that long-standing Marvel problem of people trying to mimic the style of Joss Whedon that's just been filtered through this like fucked up sieve where it becomes a parody of itself. The humor is way more natural and fitting and doesn't pull you out of the experience like some of the weaker Marvel stuff has. It still feels like it cares about the character and the stakes and balances its tone pretty well. If you like that first Insomniac Spider-Man game, it was kind of reminding me of that as far as the way the plot was structured and how kind of likable a lot of aspects of it are. I liked seeing him kind of burnt out and in this isolated environment where he's not Iron Man Jr. anymore. Probably my least favorite aspect of Homecoming outside of some of the bland stylistic stuff. I think the score needed some work. There are a lot of needle drops like in the previous three, which are fine, but I wish there were more moments that could let the score breathe or establish something with a bit more personality. This scene was fucking awesome. Probably the best action scene in the film. Just from these really low-res screenshots, you can see a lot more mood than the previous John Watts movies. I really wish they could have not revealed that Hulk was gonna Hulk out in the movie. I know it's just too much of a pop for advertising, just like that last terrible Captain America movie with Red Hulk. That could have been a fun reveal. And it is a fun moment with some fun action, but can't help themselves. You can never have like a true surprise. Can't believe I want to see like way more of Scorpion. I really like Michael Mando as this character. And he looked cool, like the way the suit was designed, the tail, that fit nicely into the scene. It was cool, I dug that. Some of the like B, C tier rogues gallery were referenced to or included in kind of cool ways that had some nice reincorporation. It just felt like a solid Spider-Man story, not mind-blowing, not changing the game, but kind of just what these films should be. I'm always going to want more of a auteur, Raimi-esque style to be at the forefront of these, if I had my way about it, but I struggle to say that this is really bad, especially with how bad, like, Supergirl recently and some of the, or a lot of superhero output has been in whatever phase we're in now, the previous phases. I think they have found their footing a little bit more. Who are you? What? So random. Hell yeah. Fuck yeah. Completely lost my train of thought because of that little aside, but let's just talk some spoilers then as we round down this review. Wait, why is this trailer uploaded on the PlayStation YouTube channel? That's weird. So here's your spoiler warning. Go off of it now if you don't want any details spoiled. So one of the big quote-unquote mysteries in the film was who the villain is. They kept it kind of mysterious in marketing. There were obviously a lot of theories about who Sadie Sink was playing. So I had some clue that it was going to be Jean Grey. Like, who else would it be? And they've been kind of soft launching their version of X-Men for the last few films or something. I swear I saw like Beast in an after credits or something like that. I really can't keep track after a while. Like, I like superhero stuff, but not to that insane degree. One of the things that keeps people coming back to comics is taking that rogues gallery of villains and heroes and kind of mixing them together, using them to contrast certain aspects of a specific story that you're trying to tell. And there's a few things about Jean Grey that kind of echo Spider-Man's own journey, or Peter, or whatever you want to call him, and gives the narrative a nice shape as far as doing something a little bit more interesting with the villain. She's not a mustache-twirling evil person. She's kind of been through a lot. She's reframed at a certain point that adds a new sprinkling of life to the film, kind of after the Hulk action scene, which I thought was cool. One of the visual critiques I did have was that some of the shots of him looked a little bit rough. Like the Hulk, I mean, in close-ups, look really plasticky, which is odd for a film of this budget. There were some shots of CG Peter or CG suited up Spider-Man that also looked a little bit rubbery, but you could say that about the Raimi trilogy. And more with the Hulk stuff, it's the contrast with how good he looks in that first Avengers movie in particular. Like, there's a lot of ugly stuff in the 2012 Avengers movie. There's a particular shot in this chase scene which is incredible to this day. Like, this looks so fucking good. It's super insane. And while I really liked especially that moment in the action scene with Hulk where he's being chased through a hallway much like this scene from the first Avengers, I think it was an ode to it, giving it the Spider-Man literal spin of him kind of rotating wall to wall in order to avoid it. Really awesome. It was so kinetic and frenetic. I feel like I kind of need to see it again in order to soak it all in because it was just so vibrant. It's a shame this character's kind of been sidelined so hard. They don't really know what to do with him outside of having him show up for an action scene and either be used for a gag or be mind controlled for an action scene. I feel like there's more to do with him, but probably not going to happen with some of Mark Ruffalo's political opinions. Definitely an interesting choice to have Punisher be this tentpole character in the film. I'm not really into the Punisher by himself. I quite like him as a contrast, especially with Daredevil. I still would rather see Spider-Man and Daredevil, but I get the choice here with the personalities and philosophy being the complete inverse of each other, so you get some good humor out of that. They don't really take this character, I'm saying this character when this is just a dressed up Jon Bernthal. Where's a picture of him, like, actually in the film? Smiling? Angry. Yeah, he does a good job being Jon Bernthal, and... Now, this is one of those critiques that I don't know if it's just because I'm so hyper-aware of all the meta business and production side than maybe just an average person who goes to go see these films. The casting of Trammell Tillman indicated to me that he was going to be more of a big player or villainous force in the film before you were supposed to know, just on the fact that they were casting such a kind of trending actor in a role that you wouldn't really think much of otherwise. So that aspect of the character wasn't really a surprise to me. And going back to the Jean Grey, Sadie Sink thing, it literally like just spoils it on IMDb now. You get one weekend. If you're not caught up in the first weekend that a film is out, then it's gonna be spoiled. But as far as her telekinesis powers, I really like the simplicity of how they displayed the jumping concept, which was mostly through people just physically moving their bodies as if there's this invisible force moving through them. I liked how that looked. I liked the kind of confusion it added to the action that involved that mechanic. And on the kind of action mechanics, the whole inner conflict of Spider-Man having this weird, almost like chemical imbalance, this hormonal imbalance between his arachnid and human DNA. I thought that added a fun element to some of the action where he was all fucked up and his powers weren't working properly, so he's crashing into stuff and almost nearly killing people. I wasn't sure if that was soft launching some kind of idea of a Venom-y type thing, because maybe that's just a reminiscent kind of story beat, the thing, the MacGuffin that makes him kind of angrier, more powerful, but less responsible. I don't know. I still feel like they should try and do a Venom with him at some point. That would be cool to actually do that character right. He's never had a true moment to shine, depending on how you feel about those fucking Tom Hardy movies. There could be some broader repercussions to him designing this universal inhibitor chip, which is part of the plot, that might come back into play later, which would be quite satisfying. They probably do need to address some of the more sinister shit that Jean Grey does, especially that scene with her taking over MJ and, like, fucking with Peter. That was, like, a really dark, disturbing thing to do. He even says something like this. You realize this is unforgivable, right? And he just kind of just forgives her, even though that's like a type of psychological warfare. It was like, sure, she's coming from a fucked up place, she's had a lot happen to her, but man, that is some evil behavior. And I guess another aspect of the Hulk stuff is it did feel a little bit reminiscent of a mind reader or mind bender, making him be a villain like in Age of Ultron. It's not exactly the same, slightly different. I think this actually seems probably better than that one. But with how many of these films there are, I guess at a certain point, just like in the comics, they kind of start feeling like remixes of each other, and it's more how you execute the set piece than how interesting it might be of how you got there. Really like that final shot of the handshake. I mentioned it or alluded to it earlier. That was a really satisfying place to end the story and kind of leave you wanting more. I guess my last major critique I'll throw in here before I finish this video is that while there is a lot of kind of frenetic, fun camera work when there's something exciting happening, some of the blocking for the dialogue is pretty plain. I feel like you could spruce that up a little bit, and that would keep some of the A-B dialogue exposition stuff a bit more interesting. But all in all, I enjoyed my time with this. Solid Spider-Man movie. Probably will age better than No Way Home. That's the big one for me as far as when you revisit it, like certain flaws really jump out at you. But I'd probably give it around a similar rating. Probably the most consistent of the Tom Holland movies. Not that passionate about it, but I'm feeling generous today, so I'd give this like a low 7 or a high 3-star, somewhere in this kind of pocket. Give it a like as well. So those are my initial thoughts on this movie on a first watch, so let me know your thoughts. Do you like this new direction? Do you think it's coming to its own, this Tom Holland sprint of movies? Let me know, and I'll see you on the next vid. Bye!